Why are so many dogs suffering from health issues? Actress Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, says she's seeing more issues with dogs' joints, odors, and health than ever before. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to support any dog's health: their food. So she decided to create something she could actually feel good about feeding her dogs. It's called Superfood Complete. Superfood Complete is made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital to your dog's health. Badlands Ranch also sponsors the Jason Debus Heigl Foundation, which has helped rescue thousands of dogs and place them in loving homes. Dogs across America are trying this food and experiencing amazing health benefits. Go to badlandsranch.com/save50 and order right now to get up to 50% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to badlandsranch.com/save50 today.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company. Home delivery available in Regina at sassbeerdelivery.ca. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast, 8 End Nation edition.
Yes!
You are listening to the internet's only dumb curling podcast. I'm Joel Gasson with John Fraser as usual. And yes, we have plenty to get to today as this is becoming our annual tradition and sort of the long national nightmare between the Scotties and the Brier. That is the whole 6 days or whatever it is of no curling. When it's really tough though. You get into that groove of being able to watch it basically any time of day you want for about 10 days. And then one day it just stops and you're like, okay, what am I going to do for 6 days now, you know?
Especially, okay, and, this is my whole adult life, this has thrown me off, because previously when I was in broadcasting, obviously working in Saskatchewan, you had to keep people updated on the curling, so I was always watching it. And now, let's face it, the slowest month for people buying vehicles is February. So, I've just had this ability to watch the games, and you're right, it is jarring. It's almost as jarring as me trying to come to work after the Super Bowl this year. I got to remember to book that day off. That was not great, but yes, the long national nightmare ends. We're recording this on a Wednesday. It ends on Friday night.
Yes, so of course the Brier returns on Friday night. You may remember in past years we've had super lead, super curler, friend of the show, or maybe former friend of the show, we'll find out, Cullen Hodgson on to discuss everything about rocks and pebbled ice. But quite frankly, well, there's a couple of things. Number one, Hodgie's just way too smart and thoughtful for this podcast.
Yes,
and
100%.
We are just not about that around here. Everything he says is great, and you should listen to him, and he's a super smart, super thoughtful guy. That's just not what we're about around here.
No, we are about embracing the dumb, and I love our conversations with Cullen, and I have a lot of those conversations with him privately. But I feel like for this year we need to mix up. We had 3 Down's own John Hodge on once, okay? And then we had a Cullen Hodgson, and Cullen came and basically made us sound like mental midgets.
It's not hard, but...
also not very hard, but again, one of the brightest dudes you'll ever have the honor to have a conversation with. So I think the solution is to go back to another guy named John. That's what we're missing.
Yes, we've had many episodes on the show, basically. I remember once we did the, Labor Day preview one, and we called it Between Two Johns.
Yes.
Because it was me and 2 Johns. And it was, again, me and 2 Johns, as, of course, host of All Things Curly on many platforms that is not TSN. we will be joined in a little bit by, of course, John Cullen to discuss everything about the world of curling. The Scotties that went through, a little bit on sort of where the game could be headed, and of the Brier as well. But there's also another reason maybe why Cullen isn't on this show this year.
Yes, I am mad at him.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just because he's too smart for us. This is why I brought up potentially still a friend of the show. Because if you may or may not know, Haji, of course, returned. Well, he was living in Northern Ontario the whole time, but he was curling this year out of Northern Ontario with Team Horgan. And so that potentially, and there were, I can confirm through sources that were John Fraser himself, conversations about him potentially being the fifth on this team. Yes. Heading into the Brier this year once they secured the provincial win, which I believe they came back from like all the way from the C event to win that dang thing.
They did. They came through the C event and beat a bunch of 16-year-old kids and just dummied these guys. Like I felt bad. Like it was a oh god, think of the children moment. But I came all the way back from the C, and I'm not gonna lie, I might have texted Colin my highlight videos and had my skip Luke, our skip at the men's spiel, getting in his ear a bit, pumping my tires. And of course, most importantly, because now you can represent the province you live in or the province you were born in, I sent him high-res shots of my Thunder Bay, Ontario birth certificate. So there was legitimate discussions about me being the fifth. Now, the thing is, the Brier starts on Friday. It is Wednesday. I'm in house shorts in my basement. They're having a welcome party tonight. I'm safe to assume I don't think I made the cut. So now there is beef, Colin Hodgson. There is large beef. Not good beef. Like, we're talking like bottom of the freezer flank steak that you got to marinate for 3 days to make it decent. So, Haji? Who am I kidding? I still love that guy. I mean, I'm going to be cheering for him the whole way, wearing those Northern Ontario colors. However, he did promise me a jersey, so I can be bought off with sports apparel.
The jersey that, he created.
That his company manufactured for the Brier. But I want, though, and I doubt Haji will listen. He's going to be too busy with the Brier.
No question. There's no chance he's going to listen to us. Like, come on.
100%. But like, I haven't decided if I want, because he has legitimately promised me a jersey, and I don't know if I want one that he's curled in or one that he hasn't. Like, do you want the game-worn one, and then you're like, do I wash this before I frame it? Like, what do I do here? And I've got
I assume, I've never bought an actual game-worn anything. I assume it gets washed before it gets sent to you.
Does it?
I would think so.
I don't know. I feel like we got to ask, we're going to have to ask the guys on the Piffles pod, because they do stuff like that. And maybe have a conversation with them. I got to ask Greg if this stuff stinks, right? Because
why would you want some stinky thing in your house? I mean, beyond, like, us farting all the time. I mean...
But, like, it makes it authentic that it's game worn. See, I've got a cool idea, because I actually managed to get a Dallin Myers, Saskatchewan jersey. And I'm like, I want the same frame, like, Northern Ontario and Saskatchewan, like the two places that I've spent, basically half my life. Well, oh, shit, exactly half. Fuck, I'm old. 18 years in Northern Ontario, 18 years in Saskatchewan. Huh. All right, I'm having a moment of crisis. Joel, go on.
So, we're going to talk a little bit of token football, I guess, right now.
Might as well, right?
It's basically a workaround to make sure that I can still post this on 3downnation.com and ensure that it reaches as many people as possible, though I don't know how many people actually access the pod through the website. I'm sure the analytics tell me it's not much, but every little bit counts. Interesting news, of course, our boy, Justin Dunk, the man who is never wrong.
That's right. Despite all the noise out there, show me when Dunk was wrong once. Exactly. You can't.
Out basically almost before we hit record earlier today on this episode. Rough Riders contract with QB Trevor Harris, worth more than $1 million over 2 years. Not really that big a surprising number. Just interesting to see how it all breaks down. So he basically got this year a $250,000 signing bonus to become the face of the franchise. He'll earn $221,500 in base salary, $13,500 in housing, $10,000 in non-football related services to the club, aka speaking tours.
That's interesting to me, because I think it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, Gas.
Mm-hmm.
And we have never seen the new CFL CBA.
No, and we'll get to that. And
Right.
a $5,000 travel allowance in 2023. Same kind of breakdown. The next year, his total increase, it goes to $525, $250 bonus, $246.5 base, $13.5 housing money, $10,000 non-football related services, $5,000 travel allowance. And then yes, Dunk says, though the new collective bargaining agreement between the league and the CFL Players Association is yet to be made publicly available, non-football related services of the club are generally public appearances a player makes on behalf of the team. So that is an interesting swerve that is apparently... Now, I assume there maybe still be some quote-unquote unofficial things that they do on behalf of the team that maybe still get paid, as every team across the league does this, for the most part. I'm not accusing the Riders of doing anything that no one else does.
No, I mean, listen, I invite you to listen to our friend of the show, Derek Taylor's call on CJOB, and listen to the commercial breaks, because every commercial is like, I'm Adam Big Hill for Big Joe's Liquor Store. I'm Adam Big Hill for this Ford dealer. I'm Adam Big Hill for this Kleenex box. Like, it's Big Hill, Big Hill, Big Hill, Big Hill. And, that's been arranged by somebody. Every team does it, but it was fascinating to me that it's in the wording of this contract.
Yeah, so it's obviously a thing that now, to a degree, counts against the cap. It's kind of one of those things, like if you're a server at a bar or a restaurant, you kind of, you report some of your tips, but not all of it kind of thing.
Right.
That's kind of how it feels to me.
Well, and that's exactly it. And honestly, I think I like this contract. You paid $481,000 last year for Cody Fajardo.
Yep.
There's no argument, especially at this point after last season, that Trevor Harris is a quantifiable, much better quarterback than Cody Fajardo. The cap goes up a little bit this year. You kind of got him right in line. And the other thing I like about it too, that the $1 million is a splashy headline, right? And that's what we do. I mean, that's how we get paid, is people click on articles and read them. So the thing I like is a veteran guy taking a $250,000 roster bonus for February 1st. That to me, people might say, okay, he went and got the bag. Like, this guy started making $150,000 last year, took over Vernon Adams' job. Now he's the starter. But like, that to me says, all right, February 1st, if I'm your guy, you got to write me a check.
Yeah, it's
that's
smart.
Good. I like that.
It's smart for everyone all around. Like, basically, the Riders can look at it and say, okay, if things don't go well this year, then, okay, there's an out here on before February 1st where we don't owe this guy another dime.
Right,
and on the other end, if Trevor Harris, if things maybe aren't quite right with the relationship or whatever, then he's probably gotten out by February 1st as well. Everyone moves on hunky-dory. Or this year goes swimmingly, which I know the team believes it will, and you happily pay the guy $250K and make another run at it.
That's exactly it. I think if you can get a starting quarterback for $525 or $500, you're laughing.
Well, I mean especially when a guy reaches free agency, you're always going to overpay that talent level, that position at, in free agency a little bit. You don't generally get, the highest end free agents on discount through free agency.
Well, and even, okay, let's compare it to Collaros, who, to me, even despite some flaws, is probably the only other true QB1 in this league right now. I mean, there's a few, but like,
Levi Mitchell will probably have something to say about that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But like, Collaros makes $600.
Yeah.
I'm saying this as a guy that likes Zach Collaros. I would take Trevor Harris for $500 on a veteran team. I'd take him on Winnipeg for $500 over Collaros over $600 right now. Save that $100,000, right? I like Collaros, but realistically, you're getting a bona fide starter for in free agency where you have to overpay for less than, QB1 outside of Bo Levi Mitchell makes. So I like it. I like it a lot.
We also like curling around here. So we're going to get into that a little bit with our guest, Mr. 1, John Cullen. But before that, as usual, John, for the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, what is in the glass this week?
The best bang for your buck in Saskatchewan continues as, had to save myself a couple bucks this week. So I walked into Sobeys Liquor and got myself, again, for just like $13, the Black Bridge Brewery, say it 5 times fast, just the IPA. It's exactly as advertised. It's hoppy, it's bitter, it's pungent, it's 6.5. It's delightful in your face hole if you like IPAs. And again, realistically, you're paying for a 4 tall boys, you're paying on average about $5-6 less for 4 than you are for anybody else.
Yeah, for me, I also picked up one of the better values in the province you can find on a pretty good price in a lot of places. That's from the Blackbridge Taster's Flight, I believe they call it. That's their mix pack. I am drinking the Blackbridge Milk Stout, which is exactly also as described, black, roasted, and creamy. Just kind of a nice, I tend to drink the dark beers a little bit slower, and that's kind of the vibe I was feeling tonight. So
well,
that's where I went with that.
Right, a nice slow vibe. We're going to let John bring the energy because guy knows what he's doing, and we can shut up for once. And it is the annual 8N Nation podcast, and always so much fun to talk to my namesake and friend, John Cullen, who's a former lead, now the lead commentator for curling.com, host of his own Way Inside podcast. He's got a newsletter that's out. Oh, and the man is a comedian, but of all those career things, we all know what the career highlight is. That's getting to work with me on one Saskatchewan Rush game that started at 10:30 p.m. local time. John Cullen, welcome to 8N Nation, my friend.
That's right. Thank you very much, John. Yes, absolutely was a great experience. Saskatchewan Rush, box lacrosse, sport I know a lot about. And I think I'm sure you probably got in trouble for letting me do that with you. But
no, I didn't. It was through the roof. I had people that were like hammered in cabs that were like, whoever your color guy was, it was awesome. Because we knew like first face-off was like 10:30 local. Like we're out on the West Coast. We're just having a time, you and I. And no, like tons of positive feedback on that. So
okay. Oh, good. Yeah, no, I remember that night specifically too, because I remember there was like some Facebook comedy drama going down at the same time.
Oh, right.
I was like walking into the rink in Langley, and yeah, so I remember like doing that, but then also like my phone was kind of blowing up at the same time, and it was it was just back in those days when Facebook drama mattered,
Exactly. Now it doesn't matter, but what does matter is, of course, your great insights on the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. You just put out the newsletter this week. You had 23 thoughts. I really like that nice quick format. I love your newsletters. I've been a subscriber since day one.
Thank
that's
you,
just not just because we're buddies, of course. I actually do read it, believe it or not. But what I want to ask you is, out of those 23 thoughts, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot like Elliot Friedman on Tim and Friends. Is there one of those 23 you'd want to elaborate, you'd want to discuss more about that maybe you didn't get all your thoughts out during the newsletter? That's right. I'm making you the Elliot Friedman of our show.
Wow, too much hype coming in. Wow, one thought that I would really want to blow up. I guess that's a good question. I would guess I would say that the first thing that hopped to my mind is sort of the Rachel Homan question / conundrum, because how I did it was the teams that made the playoffs, I had a couple thoughts, the teams that were on the podium had a couple thoughts for each of those teams. Then the teams that were in the playoffs had like one thought for each of them. So Homan kind of only got one thought, but I think that's the one that really stands out, because I think their year on social media and maybe off the ice has been strange. I think as far as everybody just seems to have an opinion about their team for some reason.
Right.
And for whatever reason, the opinion just never seems to be like, maybe they're just pretty good and they like it and they like each other. Actually, like that's
the audacity.
Like it's very odd. Like I can't wrap my head around, and maybe it's because they're women, or maybe it's because of Rachel, or people are still a little sour about the whole Team Fleury breakup and everybody loves Tracy, or I genuinely don't know what it is, but it just like has felt from the start of the year that people just want to put them like 10 feet underground for something. Right. It's like anytime they don't win, people just can't wait to tell them that they stink and the team's going to break up and all this. And so, I think Rachel probably 8 times out of 10 makes that double and beats Christina Black. And then if she beats Black, who knows what happens, right? Like I think Black only lost to McCarville because they were out of energy. They had to go through that 3-game day. Their first 2 games were in extra ends. McCarville kind of put the boots to them. But then McCarville didn't have a great rest of the playoffs. So you wonder, maybe Homan beats McCarville. Now all of a sudden they're in the seeding game, which means they're at least getting a chance to compete for a bronze. So I don't know, so I just find it very strange that people are just like, oh, yep, exactly what I thought. They suck and they're going to break up. And it's all like, I see nothing from that team to suggest that they're bad. They're ranked number 2 in the world right now after their Scotties points are calculated.
Yep.
So heads up, they're number 2 in the entire world. And also they seem like they're getting along. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they like each other.
Yeah. So I don't know. To me, that was sort of the big kind of thing coming out of the Scotties. I think everyone else, the Einarson dominance, the Jones kind of thing, a bit of a surprise, but also not so much of a surprise. It's Jen. You can never really be too surprised,
Right.
Christina Black may be a bit of the breakout star of the Scotties, but I think that was the main thing for me was that, it just the team home and discourse all year long, but then particularly around the Scotties, I thought was maybe a little overblown and unfair, I would say.
I would agree.
Well, it's funny that you bring up the double that she should have made, and she definitely should have made that double, and she would probably 99 times out of 100 historically. But I just remember the conversation before it with the coaching and everyone that she didn't really like the peel on that call, if I'm getting my correct call. And I was like, and in retrospect, I think she was actually right. Maybe they shouldn't have peeled, because then it kind of set up the situation that they were in. But hey, you win some, you lose some, right?
For sure. I mean, I think, but that's again, the other thing too, is I think people who view that in a certain way go, there you go. Rachel and Tracy, they don't get along. They don't agree. Whatever. And it's like, that happens all the time.
Exactly.
It's not, it's a very normal thing. And also it's the first year as a team. Like a lot of the teams are going to be going through some of those growing pains, especially if you're making changes at the back end. So to me, I agree with you. I think, maybe that's something they talk about after and they iron out like, hey, look, if I don't like the first shot in the extra end, then maybe we don't do that shot.
Yeah.
Like I want to have a little more control over the shots I'm throwing. Maybe they talk about that, but I doubt Rachel got off the ice and was like, fuck you. Can I swear on this thing?
Of course you can. Absolutely you can. Yeah.
Fuck you, Tracy. What the hell? Like, how dare you talk me out of the I think she wanted to play the draw or whatever. Like, how dare you talk me out of that? Like I severely doubt that's how it all broke down. So
certainly. I mean, how it broke down was Carrie Einarson winning a 4th in a row, which none of us thought. I don't think anybody thought could happen in this era, especially with the wild card teams and Team Canada and adding Northern Ontario. I think that was just unbelievable. One thing you pointed out, and Joel and I were talking about this a little bit through the day today, is how good her team was. It just seemed to me like Carrie didn't find that extra gear through the whole Scotties, and they just kicked everybody's asses. Like, how good can they be, John?
Yeah, crazy good. I think it's so people talk a lot about curling stats, and rightfully so, right? Stats are often done by volunteers that live in the city that the Scotties or the Brier are in. So they're not, it's not like Curling Canada is flying in expert statisticians to take these stats. And, we can sit here and argue whether curling stats is even the right way of doing it, like marking the shots out of 4 or whatever. But I find the plus minus stat to be very informative because that's an even playing field. It's like, even if someone's doing the stats wrong, if you're a plus, right? Like, I mean, it's so the way it works, if you don't know, is if you and your opponent are within 5 percentage points of each other, it's an even. So you both don't score a point for that game. And if you're above 5% ahead of your opponent, then you get a plus and your opponent gets a minus. So Val is +7, which for thirds is crazy because because when you think about it, Einarson, so they're playing, they went the long way through the playoffs. So they're playing all the top teams, and Val still manages a +7, which is crazy. And then Shannon was a +10. I mean, a +10. I'd never seen that at a nationals, and you can say, they have games against the Yukon or none of it or whoever, but that doesn't matter. +10. I mean, that's absurd. Like, that's absurd. So, I think the middle of the lineup is the really scary part. Because I think, and I almost wrote this in the newsletter, but then I cut it because it was just too long of a thought. But, like, Carrie is one of the best skips. I don't think we can say Carrie is the best skip because I think there's about 10 last rock throwers you could say are all kind of in the same convo. I think, Carrie, Rachel, Anna Hasselborg, Alina Petz, Tab Peterson, like there's a convo to be had there. And then it's the same at lead, like, lead everybody's throwing the same shots all the time. It's hard to truly separate. Like, you have to have a great lead, but there's a lot more great leads than there are great skips, we'll say. So, Brienne obviously is a great lead, one of the top leads in the world, was playing 5 months pregnant or so.
Yeah.
Incredible. But like, there's not a, Brienne's never going to be able to go plus 10. There is just never going to happen, right?
Yeah.
No.
So when you think about the middle of the lineup going a combined plus 17, and like you said, Carey struggled, particularly in the semifinal. I think she was scored at like 70%, and that is generous in my opinion.
I would agree.
As it often is.
And she wasn't very good. And not only did they win, they were up 1 coming home with hammer.
Yeah.
So when your last rock thrower is in the 70s and is probably closer to like 55, and you're 1 up with hammer coming home, I mean, it's just crazy. To me, that team, Carey is a phenomenal last rock thrower. I think she calls a good game. She's exactly who you want at the T head, but I think it's Val and Shannon for me that is kind of what's ascended that team to another level.
Well, it was just crazy watching that too, because I mean, you could see that. I'm glad you busted out the stats in your newsletter, John, but yeah, just seeing that was nuts.
Why are so many dogs suffering from health issues? Actress Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, says she's seeing more issues with dogs' joints, odors, and health than ever before. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to support any dog's health: their food. So she decided to create something she could actually feel good about feeding her dogs. It's called Superfood Complete. Superfood Complete is made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital to your dog's health. Badlands Ranch also sponsors the Jason Debus Heigl Foundation, which has helped rescue thousands of dogs and place them in loving homes. Dogs across America are trying this food and experiencing amazing health benefits. Go to badlandsranch.com/save50 and order right now to get up to 50% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to badlandsranch.com/save50 today.
Yeah, well, it's funny because John and I were talking about this earlier today, and it's more like we can't really remember too many moments because curling's often a game where the skip gets the spotlight, and it's, we focus on the skips and how they play and how they do, and more often than not, the best skip tends to win these things. But you can't remember really through this whole 4-year stretch too many games where Carrie Anderson actually had to will her team to victory, which is pretty remarkable in itself.
For sure, and you can't you can't. So I think if you want to talk about a skip who willed their team to victory, Christina Black is obviously the one in this Scotties who willed her team to victories. So you want to talk about plus minus. Jen Baxter was even. Her other teammates were minuses. And Christina was even too. But in a field,
the shots were what they were.
The shots were what they were. She made the right shots at the right time. I mean, she made so many good shots, and that always runs out. Your skip can get hot, and you might maybe win a Scotties off of your skip getting hot, but it's very unlikely. You can have a deep run, but it usually runs out at some point. It ran out for Christina Black. And so, yeah, exactly to your point, Joel, I think it's, Carey can play so good, but you can't win 4 Scotties in a row. You can't make 7 slam finals in a row. You can't do what they've done without all of that. And so without the team. And so to me, and I think there's a reason why, when we talk about the best players of all time, it's usually, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people who follow the game really closely, it's thirds. When I think of to me, if you want to have a serious conversation about the best player of all time, if John Morris is not in the conversation, then to me, I don't really care. People go, oh, it's Kevin Martin. Oh, it's Kevin Cooey. And they're in the conversation too. But if you're not talking about John Morris, you're not talking about Mark Kennedy, you're not talking about John Meade, guys like that, to me, thirds are everything. And then same on the ladies' side, Caitlin Laws, Val Sweeting, they're starting to get into that conversation too. And so yeah, that to me is like where I think Val is heading, and I talked about that in the newsletter a little bit, but to me it's really Val recognizing like I could be a very good skip, and I could even win the Scotties as a skip, but I could be like a true like Hall of Famer at third.
Yeah.
And John Morris made the same realization around the same age as Val. And I see their careers are on a similar trajectory. I think Val is one of the best thirds to ever play the game in Canada. And I think that legacy is only going to get further cemented over this quad.
Certainly. Now we have touched, you started talking about some men's curling and stuff like that. I got to say, Joel and I have always said that to me, the Scotties is usually more entertaining than the Brier. I mean,
Sure.
we're big advocates of women's curling, and we went to our listeners, and I'm not surprised at the Venn diagram of CFL fans and curling fans. It's just a circle. Like, let's face it, nobody fucking follows me and Joel for much of anything, but they're mostly because of the football podcast. So when we send out like, hey, we're doing our annual curling podcast and we get some great responses, that's cool, right? Because again, the Venn
That's very
diagram
cool. Yeah.
So to lead into, before we talk Brier, and I think I know where you're going to go with this, and I love it. I love it. How do we make men's curling as entertaining as women's curling? Because to me, women's curling, you've got the teams that come out of nowhere. You've got Christina Black. You're not really seeing that in the men's game. You've got games that might have 3 or 4 blanks and end up being a 6-4 final, right? There's always rocks in play. There's excitement. There's everything. How do we bring that level to the men's game? It's cool to see somebody make a run back triple, but when they're just lobbing it through for a blank, everybody hates blanks, right? I mean, I think we can all agree on that, but what do we do to get rid of that?
So, I mean, if you want my true, like, real deal controversial opinion here.
Yes, 100% I do. Let's go.
Men's curling is the best it's ever been right now.
Yes,
I don't think you need to change anything. I mean, if you watch the Olympic gold medal final between Mowat and Adine, in my mind, that's the best curling game ever played.
Yes.
So to me, like, I think it was Havard Vad Pedersen, we were talking about in the wake of the Olympics, and he said, I can't remember the exact phrasing he used, but it was like, there's something different about hitting blanks and blanks, like it's not like the team puts the first rock in the house and then the next team hits it and the next team hits it and whatever. And so to me, like, I just think it's lazy. I just think it's very lazy to be like, there's so many blanks. This stinks. I hate it. But if you are like dead set on, we got to change something. And I agree with you. I think one point you made is very well made, is that you're right. We're not going to have a Christina Black at the Brier. No, it's not going to happen. No. And I don't think there's anything we can do in Canada. The only way that that's going to happen is if more teams are willing to pay more money. Like they're just like, and quit their jobs and whatever, the game will have to be increasingly professionalized. If you want a true underdog story at the Brier anymore, there needs to be more money in the game, or that's just not going to happen because the top teams are too good and none of them have jobs. So, they have jobs, but gone are the days of like, oh, I have a really understanding job. I only have to work 30 hours a week. Now it's like, I have a really understanding job. I work 4 hours a week. Right. It's like, or I have a really understanding job. My job is I'm a golf pro and I only work from April to August or whatever.
Or a broom sales rep like Mike McEwen.
Yes, exactly. Right. Like,
or they're all like the retired CFL players who were like real estate agents or mortgage brokers, where you can do that anywhere from any time.
Totally. So that's the thing. Until we get to a point where, you can have 20 teams that can afford to do that instead of 5. It's just not going to be the same. So I think I'm a big advocate. If you say we got to get rid of the blanks, blah, 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 blah. I think the best solution is the half point.
This is what I want you to bring up. I love this.
Everybody hates it because they're like, curling's already complicated. Why do you need to complicate it?
I love the idea because you're right. Like, it's not even the blanks, it's the extra ends. The extra ends are so anticlimactic that unless you're curling me, You don't really have a chance. Like, let's face it, I'm a choke artist. I once flashed an open hit for 5 at a fun bonspiel, right? Like, there's a reason I'm called Johnny Flash when I'm on the ice. So,
It's not because you're fast.
no, well, I am also sneaky fast, but
That's Broom losing, though. That's Broom losing weight,
I
though.
do have Broom losing weight, but sometimes it just, it's not there. But the half point, to me, when I read about the half point, it's less about reducing blanks and your thought on it being, and I'll let you elaborate, John, for people that haven't read, but I love the idea to basically give late game some more excitement. I love it.
Yeah, so basically the half point is, and I'm not even sure who suggested it originally. I know Jason Gunlickson is a huge proponent of it, and anybody who understands curling from the math side of things who likes it, like Jason does, because I'm not very smart with numbers, but he loves it, and so that's good enough for me. But basically, the reason for the half point is right now the advantage of starting the first end with hammer is way too great. So even if you put aside, who has the hammer in the extra, or there's too many blanks or whatever, it's just the skills competition that we're starting the game with. It would be like if, it would be like if the NHL started every game with a shootout, and whoever won the shootout starts the game leading 2-0. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So that's the thing, is like, we're doing this skills competition before the game. And if you win the skills competition, your chances of winning the game are so much greater than if you didn't. And so I think, so what the half point is you still do the draw to the button for at the start of the game. And basically, if you win the draw to the button, you get a choice. You can either start the game with hammer, or you start the game with a half point lead. So there is never a team there's never a tie. So you, first of all, there's no extra ends anymore. They're gone, finised.
TSN would love that.
Well, everyone would love that, right? Everybody would love that. It's also, and I used, I think this analogy is like right now. So the no tick is helping.
Yes, absolutely.
I think before the no tick, the stats were at the top level of the game. If you have the hammer going into the extra, you're somewhere between 90 and 95% likely to win. That's in the top like 15, 20 teams, let's say. Obviously, that goes down a little bit if it's, let's say, a team that's ranked 20th and a team that's ranked 30th. Maybe that goes down to about 10 to 15%, but it's still a massive advantage. Again, using a hockey analogy, it'd be like, okay, well, we got to overtime, and the team that scored the last goal, they weren't leading longer. They had to score the last goal to tie it up. Now the team that was leading before they tied it up, they get to play the whole overtime 4-on-3. Like, it just doesn't, there's no, it's the way it works out makes no sense. So you win the draw to the button, you decide, do I want hammer or do I want to start with the half point lead? And it's a way of sort of mitigating the advantage of the hammer to start the game. And, I think it's just brilliant. I think you always have a team in the lead. I know there are some people who make some arguments against it, that they would say it would keep the game a little bit more defensive because teams would want to be, because teams would want to be controlling, like, okay, when do we want to go for it? Like, both teams might sort of agree to keep it at a half point lead for a while into the game. But I don't know. I just don't see that happening. I think it immediately puts the onus on the team that starts with hammer to score 2. And it just makes the game more interesting, gets rid of the extra ends. You still might have blanks, blanks are going to happen. I mean, It's not, but because I think what people don't realize is the obvious solution people always say to eliminate blanks is, well, let's just give hammer to the other team. Okay. I think what people don't understand is that is going to make the game more defensive.
Yes.
Because teams that do not have the hammer are now not going to be trying to steal at all. They are going to be trying to force their opponent to score 1, because they know their opponent has to score 1. So the advantage for the team now without hammer is, well, if we hit everything, they're going to be forced to draw for 1 and we get the hammer back. So, if you like, I could see teams actually, what you might actually see happen is a team in a good stealing position. Okay. So let's say, you're thirds rocks and you got one buried behind a center guard, like it's dead buried, but you go, you know what? We're playing on arena ice. We're playing Brad Gougeau. They're really good. at like hack board weight. You know, they could possibly get around this center guard. And if they ever get around it and tap it out, then now they're behind the center guard and they might get two. You might see a team in a great steal position on third rocks peel to be like, you know,
100%
what?
You would.
We would rather them take one than us maybe get a steal. Like you wouldn't want to risk it. So that's the thing, is people see this like easy solution. Oh, well, you just give the other team the hammer on a blank. No one will want to blank anymore. Well, yeah, okay, but it's not like the Skins game where you have to score two or you have to steal to get points. The 1 point is still going on the board. So the team without hammer is going to be trying their damn best to let the other team score one. And that's, you think curling is boring now, just wait until the skip yells down the ice and go, do you think we should just peel the guard here and give them one? Because that's what's going to happen. So
100% it would. 100% it would. And I think that's why you have people calling to do it and screaming from the rooftops to do it. And that's why they haven't, because you're exactly right, John.
Yeah. I mean, it's, maybe like, here's the thing about that too. And we've been on this point for a long time and I'm talking a lot, but that's okay. Listen, Joel slept like shit last night. I just got home from work. My kids are running around upstairs. Like, I even said it, like, I can show you the text exchange that Joel's like, listen, I'm glad that we're doing this early. Didn't have a great sleep last night. I'm like, it's okay. John's a talker. I'm a talker.
It is a perfect solution for tonight.
What I was going to say though, is just to put a button on this, is like, all of the people who are saying like the hammer should switch with a blank, look who they are. You haven't seen a single top level curler say that's what we should do. Not one. Show me them. Send me a tweet. Send me a post from any top curler who says that's the solution. They know it's not. They all know it's not, because they know exactly how they would play. So that's the thing. It's just, to me, it's a boring talking point. It'll never happen because everybody knows it would actually be worse for the game.
As Darren Molding would say, you'd see nothing but meat rockets.
Meat cannons.
Meat cannons. How did I fuck that up?
Well, I mean, it's par for the course, John.
Right.
So I guess we'll take a hard turn here then. Brier coming up starting this weekend, John. How do you think this is going to play out? Because, I mean, it's easy to look back at the Scotties now that it's happened. It's a little more difficult, especially with a pretty deep Brier field this year.
Brier field, very good. I mean, I love the 3 wild card teams. I think it's long overdue to have that in there officially. Brier's interesting. I think, again, it's like this year I picked Homan to win the Scotties because I thought, pardon me, you know what? Like, winning 4 Scotties in a row, just really hard.
Right.
It's just really hard to do that. The Magic's got to run out at some point. I thought Anderson was the best team going in, but I just thought, you know what? 4 Scotties in a row, that just seems like that won't happen. So I picked
seems
Homan.
impossible. Yep.
And it's the same thing with Brad Guzju, is I kind of feel like, they're the favorite, I think, on paper. Well, they're the odds on favorite. And I think that that's fair, but I don't know. I've been telling people for a while, my head is saying Botcher, my heart is saying Gunstone. I think that's where I'm at right now. I think I loved the team that Matt put together. Like, as soon as that team came together, I thought that it was just such a brilliant bit of team building. I think BJ he might be the most underrated player of all time. When you talk about the men's game, I think he doesn't get enough credit because he's only won the 1 Brier, hasn't been to the Olympics, but you talk about a pure shot maker and a guy who's just has that a little bit of level-headedness. Matty can get a little, he can get a little in his bag a bit. And I think BJ is sort of the perfect, like, just, and then Colton. I mean, Colton playing second is like Shannon playing second. It just doesn't. It doesn't really make sense that he's okay with playing second, but it's great that he is. It's sort of that perfect, like, oh, what? You'll play second for me? Hell yeah. Okay, amazing. And then, obviously Ryan, has all the pedigree, Brier champ, Olympic gold medalist, and also, very level-headed guy. So loved that team from the time they put it together. Been super thrilled to see them kind of put it together on the ice this year. They've had a fantastic season. So I think that's why my heart says them. But I think, if I was forced to pick right now, I would take Brendan Botcher. I think They got a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They're sort of the male equivalent of Team Homan this year. Everybody seems like they're just waiting for them to fail. And they haven't really failed. I thought it was very funny. Like, a lot of people were saying around like October, November, a lot of people were like, they're having a horrible season. I was like, what the fuck are you watching? What do you mean?
It just started.
Yeah.
Well, not only did it just start, but they're ranked like, at the time, they're like ranked third in the world. They won Okotoks. They made the semis in a slam. They qualified in every tournament they were in. They made the finals in something else. It was like, and then obviously they end up winning the slam shortly after that. But it was like, in what universe is this struggle? It was so confusing to me. Oh, geez, you guys really don't have it together. What? Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I really, I just think on paper, such a great team, on the ice, a great team. I think they're coming together. They got a chip on their shoulder. Obviously, losing the Alberta final was a little surprising, but Kevin Cooey's got a nice little team there too. So, that's where I'm at right now. If I had to pick, I would say Botcher, but I do think Dunstone is he's kind of sneaking in there. I think he's got a real shot this year.
And anybody that you got two guys that throw Manitoba tucks with corn brooms, always my favorite, mostly because my aching knee at the ripe age of 36, I know what they're going through with the way those knees feel. So last one for you, John, before we go, if you were to pick, again, everybody's into wagering and things like that. And of course I am, because I'm a bit of a degenerate.
Aren't we all?
We all are a little bit. If you had to pick one dark horse at the Brier, who would it be? Myself personally, I'm going with Reed Carruthers. I liked what they showed in Manitoba as a 3-man team. I know Rama well, so to me, he's my dark horse. But who is yours, Mr. John Cullen?
I like Ram too. I like Robbie Gordon. Think that's a good ad for them. I think he's I'm pulling up the odds right now so that I can feel like, okay, this is maybe a true dark horse here.
Well, I
someone
know
doing research.
Well,
that's
not research, but I'm just kind of like looking here. So Reed is plus 2,400. So that's a true underdog for sure. I think that's a good pick. I mean, underdog wise, it is hard. It is hard because I think that, like you said, outside of the top sort of 5, like, I think it kind of cuts off at Reed as to like who is maybe believable that they could win. I mean, you could maybe throw Mike McEwen in there, but the odds drop off is pretty startling. You've got Carruthers at plus 2,400, and then Mike McEwen is the next closest at plus 4,200. So to me, that's like, so that's almost double. And obviously that's maybe deserved based on the season that they've had. But I guess, if you're talking about like odds on value, tough to argue with Mike at plus 4,200. Like, that's a nice number for a guy who's, been one of the best skips for the last decade and a half, and Ryan Fry certainly no slouch either. I can see John's pulled out his phone because he's already wants to throw some money down.
And that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Like, wait a minute, plus 4,200. Sorry, where did you say that?
If anybody gives you 42-1 on anything, you take it. That is advice that I can tell you as a guy who who did well betting on the men's provincials in Saskatchewan, because
I know the stuff you can bet on now is very funny, but and I will say, I tweeted this once, and then a few betting partners got kind of mad at me, but look, I'll just say this: I think we are 5 to 7 years away from a great documentary about a curling betting scandal. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. I don't actually
at the end.
Well, I don't think anybody is actually doing it right now, but I do think if you were a curling team,
if Mike wins the Brier,
if you were a curling team and you wanted to point shave, I do feel like it would be remarkably easy to do.
Well,
okay,
100%.
So I will say, here's what I'll say. I genuinely don't think any team has a chance to win other than the top 4. So Guju, Botcher, Dunstone, Cooey. I don't think anybody else has a shot of winning other than those 4. But I will say, teams that I think will maybe overperform or surprise, Felix Asselin out of Quebec, I think really
one of the
solid.
best followers on Twitter too.
Absolutely.
Great curling Twitter follow, great guy. People may be surprised to know, I would say on my curling Twitter account, might be the guy I DM the most. Read into that what you will or not.
Makes sense. You're two great follows.
Well, he's great guy. And I will say, like in Brantford this year, I was there commentating, and I just like the makeup of the team. I think Felix is a natural skip. He's been throwing last, but Mike Fournier's been calling the game. I think Felix is now, in total control, which is where he should be. I think Martin Crack gets overlooked a little bit. He went to like 6 straight juniors out of Quebec or something. He's been to the Brier 10 times or whatever. Like I think he's very solid. And I think Felix's brother Emile has come in at second this year, and he looks really solid too. So I think that's a team that could overperform, if you want to talk about like, oh, here's a team that could maybe sneak into the playoffs. And another one is Karsten Sturmay. I thought he's been really, really good this year, better than I've ever seen him. I think sometimes when curlers come out of the University of Alberta program, they play a very defensive style. That's how they're coached. Botcher was the same when he came out of there. It took him a few years to learn how to play men's, that, you can't kind of just rely on your opponent's missing constantly. Yeah. And I think Karsten went through some of the same thing, always a good thrower, but the strategy was maybe not quite men's ready. And I think he's there now. I think JD Lind is a great player. I think if he doesn't go and coach Japan, we're talking about a guy who's won a Brier or two by now. And I think Kyle Deering is one of the more underrated guys in Canada. Personally, he moved around the lineup all year. When JD was out, he was third. When JD was in, he was second. Things are always kind of moving around. They got a really good sweeping front end too. Glenn Venance, Curtis Goller. They're very solid. I mean, they're plus 15,000 to win. They're plus 605 just to make the top 4. Ooh. So, and plus 225 to qualify out of their pool. So I believe they're in the tougher pool. So it might be a little bit of tough sledding, and maybe that's why their number is so low. But as far as a team that like could surprise that they're going to be, competitive at the end of the week, I like those two. I like Quebec and Wild Card 3.
Beautiful. Zoom says I'm out of time because I'm too cheap to pay for it. And as you can tell, I am far too cheap to pay for Zoom. But fun story, Joel. I got to tell you this. Mm-hmm. So now I can hold it over John Cullen that he has, in fact, been on a CFL podcast.
Yes.
Because we did talk football before we did curling. So, and the reason I say that is John and I met through social media when my old podcast was more popular than his podcast. And in his words on Twitter... No, his words on his podcast, how the fuck are we less popular than a CFL podcast? Nobody watches a CFL or listens to the CFL. That started a not real beef between our podcasts, and shots went back and forth for a while, and we had laughs, and then, DMs are exchanged. Next thing you know, hey, the guy's sitting in Vancouver with me. So, John Cullen, CFL podcast aficionado.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.